Philadelphia, here they come, team of the year.
Aloha and hello out there, everybody. What's going on? This is Miho from the Too Close to Call podcast, and I am joined with my co-host, as always, Pags, and this is the Here They Come podcast, where we are talking Philadelphia 76ers, and more specifically, the NBA draft recap.
Yeah, we haven't had this one since the quadruple doink, my man.
Oh, God, it's been a frustrating last month watching Kawhi Leonard just continue to run through the NBA and realize how close we were. I know you can't say 1 + 2 = 3 in this situation, but Sixers beat Toronto, they win the title. That's a no-brainer.
Maybe have a little tougher time with the Bucks, and maybe those injuries from the Warriors don't happen, but yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, clearly the same injuries at the same time would have happened in the finals, and we would have been playing against the depleted Warriors, of course, so we were this close. We should just run it back, and we're champions already. Good to go.
The people that say that, the most idiotic thing is, the Sixers weren't up like 1 point there. They would have had to beat Toronto in overtime, and I'm not sure that would have happened either.
Yeah, we were losing most of that game, if you remember, and then made a little bit of a run and a crazy play by Butler to tie it up there to force that shot. But, yeah, it was wild to see the Sixers be the only team really push Toronto to their limits. You touched on the injuries. Obviously, Golden State was shorthanded, and with a full squad, it would have been a better final. But just the way things played out, man, Philadelphia was their toughest test.
Yeah, and it's tough to see, and it kind of gives the Sixers that thought that, hey, maybe we're not as far away as we thought, but I sure as hell hope that's not what Elton Brand is thinking, because you're not going to win an NBA title with the starting five you have and 2 bench players. We need more bench. We need JJ coming off the bench. We need a lot. I'm going to put it like that. We need a lot of shit, and with the results of this NBA draft, I'm not so sure we took the steps we need to get to that point where we're ready to take an NBA title.
You touched on a couple of different things there. First is the amount of players we have under contract next year is 5. We have Embiid under a deal, Ben Simmons under a deal, Zaire Smith, Jonah Bolden, and James Ennis, who is on a player's option. So not even him. Okay. Him and Jimmy Butler are on player's options. We have a team option on Jonathan Simmons. So literally 4.5 guys under contract right now. And the roster is 15.
Jonathan Simmons is gone.
Well, that's where, as we continue, you had mentioned going into the draft, we had picks 24, 33, 34, and 42. So you're thinking, okay, that's 4 guys. They're all going to be relatively cheap because none of them are on the high end of the draft. So that's the perfect way to fill out our rotation and our bench with some new infused talent that may be an upgrade over guys like McConnell, Simmons, and Ennis. But apparently, Elton Brand had other ideas, and this came out even before the draft, because after everything happened in the first round, the Sixers traded with the Celtics to go from 24 to 20 and gave up pick 33 in the process. Okay, no problem there. Kind of like football. You give up another pick, you move up a little bit, and you take your guy. However, apparently they did not disguise who their guy was whatsoever. And Boston sitting there at 20 knowing this is like, yeah, we're going to take him and make Philly give up something to go get him instead of just sitting there at 24, not telling anybody anything, and taking your guy. So is Elton Brand already talking too much? What's going on here with this, Pags?
Well, here's the thing. Anytime you make a deal with Boston, you know that Danny Ainge knows something you don't know. So I'm done dealing with Boston. Fuck Boston. Danny Ainge seems to know a little bit more than everybody else. It showed in the Markelle Fultz trade where they were going to take Tatum no matter what. And they're like, oh, Philly really wants Markelle Fultz? Okay, let's make them sell the farm. And it's just like, oh, man, I just do not like it. And then Boston subsequently goes and takes Carson Edwards, who I have a bad feeling is going to be the Marcus Smart of the future for the Celtics, and we're just going to hate his guts.
Yeah, and that pick, I assume Elton Brand staring at the television when they take Edwards, going nuts, because right after that, we then flipped 34 for a few other picks and some money. Then at 42, we actually traded 42 with Jonathan Simmons, who you mentioned. We traded them away to basically just gain $1 million worth of cap space. And Elton Brand's explanation was, we're going to need all the money we can get. Well, no, Elton, you got 4 guys right now on the roster. You need all the players you can get right now. We're going to walk away with this draft with, I think, 1 guy, possibly 2.
Here's a quote that basically sums up Elton Brand's thinking, and I think he is way off base with what he's talking about. Picks, they're worth a certain amount for us. I don't think we can add. I know we can't add 5 young players to this established team. Okay. And then here, the Warriors GM thought process on. If you can capitalize on the draft, it's probably the best way to build a team. It's the most cost effective, and if you do it well, you can really benefit from it. So you got an established franchise who's won 3 of 5 NBA championships, building around their draft, drafting Klay Thompson, drafting Draymond Green, drafting Steph Curry, and then bringing Kevin Durant in there to add to that. And then you got Elton Brand saying, I don't think we can find 5 guys. So are you not doing your fucking homework, Elton Brand, or what are you doing? Because this sure smells like you don't know what you're doing.
There's the 2 trains of thought there, and the one is young, inexpensive talent getting assets, and the other is going for it now, paying established veteran players, and filling in with basically everything else around. And I think what's happening here is the result of this series between the Sixers and Toronto may be backfiring a little bit for the philosophy of the Sixers. I think Elton may be living a little bit too in the moment and looking at the shot by Kawhi Leonard, us taking them to Game 7, ultimately Toronto winning it, and him saying that we were 1 shot away from basically winning the title. So in my opinion, if we run it back with the same 7 guys we had in the rotation, so you bring back all your starters, Harris and Butler, you filter in last year's first-round pick, this year's first-round pick, there's your 7. You bring in a buyout guy or 2, that gives you 8 or 9. And I think in Elton's mind, because these guys are going to be signed for 3, 4, 5 years, this is the squad. So we don't need any assets whatsoever. He's going to put all of his money and time into his top 7 or 8, and then the next 8 guys on the bench are just going to be, I don't care, man, because when it comes playoff time, these guys aren't playing anyway.
Here's the thing. This Sixers team is going to ride or die with whether Ben Simmons can improve his game in the shooting aspects and whether Embiid can get past this laziness he has and actually get himself into prime tip-top shape. If those 2 things happen, and those are 2 big things because these 2 have not proven to do either of those 2 things, and then you need pieces around him. So yes, I do think Butler's going to come back. Who out there can improve this roster? And one rumor I heard, I actually think it is perfect for the Sixers, and that's Al Horford. I think Al Horford
You're going to pay Al Horford that much money, man?
Dude,
he's getting old.
I'm paying Al Horford strictly for the playoffs because Al Horford is a proven player. He plays great defense. If you run out a starting 5 in the playoffs of Simmons, Butler, Embiid, Horford, and one of these first-rounders, that's a tough defensive team. And Horford can score. Horford can shoot. We've seen Horford the last 5 years kill the Sixers. So I would love to see Al Horford there, and he can be your backup center when Embiid has to go out. You can have him there at 5. I really think that would be a good pick for the Sixers.
See, it's interesting you say that because at the core of what you're saying with Al Horford, maybe not the player itself, but I believe he gives you much improved defense because J.J. Redick and Tobias Harris were both liabilities on the defensive end. And I was looking at a potential starting five of Simmons, Embiid, Butler, Zaire Smith, and this year's first-round pick, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in the NCAA and the two-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He's a senior. Matisse Thybulle, I think is how you say his name. He's more on the Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart. He's going to be able to come in and play right away. Now, Zaire Smith and Thybulle may be a little challenged offensively, but those five guys defensively can pretty much switch with any lineup in the NBA. They can switch any on-ball screens. You couldn't switch with Harris and Redick because they would just run the pick and roll and get their best offensive player on Redick, and you were screwed for that possession. So I think Elton Brand is putting more mind and matter into the defensive end of the court as opposed to the offense, which leads to the ultimate variable, and you touched on it, whether or not Ben Simmons is going to be able to shoot a jump shot whatsoever.
Well, that's what scares the shit out of me, dude. That really is. If Elton Brand has a talk with Ben and is like, Ben, I need you to shoot. I want you to shoot. Even if you miss 5 out of the 8 shots you take, I need you to shoot. The dude hasn't proven that he can shoot or will shoot. And that is what's scary as hell. And you can only rely on Embiid so much where the other team takes away what Embiid does, and then he starts turning the ball over, and then the team presses, and then it's like, oh, man, I'm just really nervous about where we are going. And I really do think it is what you are saying is our defense wasn't the greatest against the Raptors. Let's prove our defense.
Because take a half a step back with me, Pags. You think about who's going to be the main competition in the next 3 years in the Eastern Conference. Yes, there's going to be some additions of superstars, but you're going to have the Bucks, who are all long, lanky, athletic. You had the Nets improve. They have a lot of wing guys, like LeVert was tearing us up for a couple of games. We had some issues guarding some other people. Boston with the Jaylen Browns, the Jason Tatums. It's becoming positionless wing basketball. And the Sixers looking at that going, if we can stop these guys, how are we going to do it? It's not by putting J.J. Redick on any of them. So we're going to sacrifice offensively and basically not allow anybody to score because everybody we mentioned there, Simmons, Embiid, Butler, and these two other guys are known to be tenacious on defense, which will ultimately lead to turnovers, which gets Simmons out in space, which is where he's the best. And it's just, I see it, but the depth is going to be the problem. And similar to the Phillies now, knock on wood, if you lose one or even two of these guys to injury, we're going to be screwed. That's the only problem with this model. And the Warriors, I think, showed that a little bit, is if you lose your top dogs, yes, your depth's good, but they're not that good.
Yeah, they're not going to win you a series.
Exactly. So if they do stay healthy and this starting five, I think it's an upgrade over last year's starting five with those 2 first-round picks. I really do. It's just a matter of that bench and those rotational minutes, who's going to be filling those roles, and hopefully we can do a little bit better either before the year or at the deadline than we did last year.
Well, you hope that they re-sign JJ, and JJ coming off the bench is much improved than what you had last year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have the money, man. I think he's going to go elsewhere, and somebody's going to pay him.
We'll see. I mean, JJ's taken one-year deals with the Sixers for the last 2 years. He's got a great relationship with all the players and Brett Brown, so we'll see if that pays out. But I would like to see them go for like a Danny Green from the Raptors because he's a free agent, something like that, who would give you a little bit more defensively.
Yeah.
And you saw him in the finals; he shot lights out in the finals. So we'll see what happens, man. I see that Kawhi is going to take a meeting with the Sixers, which would be freaking amazing.
Is he really?
That little rumor came out last night that Kawhi really wants to have a meeting with the Sixers. It's like, oh, please don't do what LeBron did to us last year where he only met with the Lakers and the Sixers. Don't give us that false hope.
It's going to be the Sixers, Toronto, and the Clippers, and no shot that Kawhi ends up here.
He's just doing it, be like, hey, I went and talked to 3 teams.
Yeah, guys, you had no idea. Haha, the Sixers. Yeah, there you go.
That fucking laugh he does.
Oh, man. But that's the Here They Come pod. We're going to come to you guys in the next couple of weeks once free agency hits and we see some of these dominoes fall, and hopefully the Sixers make a move or two. bring back some of these superstars because they are close, dude. For the first time in years and years and years, they're genuinely close to winning an NBA title.
Yeah, man, it's just that uncertainty that just looms there, and it's nerve-wracking. I think about it all the time, like, what the hell are we going to do? And if they make the right moves, they're right there to take the East. So it's one little move here, one little move there can determine whether we are the top dog in the East next year.
That's right, but share us with all your Sixers friends. Let us know in the comments who you think the Sixers should add, if it's Butler and Harris, or if you want some new blood in town to run it back next year. Let us know at the Too Close to Call cast on all your social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We love talking to you guys, hearing what you guys think. And like we mentioned, we will talk to you guys once some of those free agency moves come about.
Go Sixers!
Peace!